As an alpha founder, slaying behemoths since August of 2017, I am nothing but ecstatic at the current success of Dauntless. Phoenix Labs has implemented some ingenious and cutting-edge features into this free-to-play Monster Hunter Soulsborne-like experience, and because of the game being cross-platform and featuring cross-save functionality, you and your loved ones with access to an Xbox One, PS4, or PC can all play the game for free today, and if you decide to switch over to a different platform, you will retain all progress. That means Twitch Prime loot, PS4 and Xbox exclusive content, all in-game store purchases, literally everything. It's all carried over and available immediately. This is a beautiful system, and unlike Monster Hunter World, Dauntless doesn't force you to grind your progress all over again when you simply decide to play on a different platform. The question that might come to your mind, though, is should you play Dauntless? In this video series, I'm going to give you insider information about what Dauntless was, what it is today, and why I believe it's absolutely worth your time. This first video will focus on what you can expect to experience playing Dauntless in 2019. My name is Adore, and this is Dauntless and You. If you logged into Dauntless on launch day, you probably experienced all sorts of network, server load, and queuing issues. As far as I know at this point, the devs likely did not anticipate the enormous flood of new users into their free-to-play game, and as such, they needed to do a lot of behind-the-scenes work in order to address it. With that being said, the issues have now been rectified, and everyone should have a very smooth experience with Dauntless, at least from the network side of things. Dauntless is a free-to-play, cooperative multiplayer game where you work with others to take down large behemoths and craft unique weapons and armor from the parts that you earn on each hunt. The amount and types of materials that you acquire directly correspond to how well you do on each hunt, measured by a letter grade and specific criteria like how many times you went down and had to be revived. You can earn special parts if you manage to break behemoth parts, such as legs and claws. Tails, of course, can also be cut off. Thanks to a combat rework that we actually got back in winter of 2018, which was called Sharpen Your Skills, every weapon in Dauntless now fulfills a unique purpose and role. Axes, chain blades, and swords do slashing damage, hammers do blunt damage, and the war pike has the unique ability to wound weak parts of behemoths through piercing damage. Hammers and axes, to a lesser extent, should be your weapon of choice if you want to inflict significant stagger damage. The most recent weapon that was added to Dauntless was the repeaters. These gun weapons are, in my opinion, a bit easier to use than other weapon types, but they still pack a massive punch. All of the weapons have a meter, and it charges up as your weapon is used. This allows you to then use a weapon art of sorts. For hammers, you can unleash a shotgun of sorts. Axes actually get more powerful as you land charged attacks, and as the level of the charge increases, so does the overall damage. The repeater pistols can be reloaded close to a behemoth to power them up for extra damage for a short time. Swords, once charged up, send out waves of aether energy consisting of whatever element the sword is using, and are anime AF. Unleash your inner Kirito. War pikes can fire off blasts of energy. And finally, chain blades can pull you close to behemoth or backflip you away from danger. All of those attacks can be altered or changed completely through mods that are gained through the mastery system. More on that in a moment though. Depending on how many other slayers are in your party, the behemoths that you fight will be buffed to match the number of players. That means that their health pools will be larger and their attacks will be far deadlier. You're actually able to craft several support and offensive items to bring with you during your hunts, but 5 health potions are always refreshed after each hunt, so you don't have to farm materials in order to make them. Everything else though, like lifesteal potions that heal the entire team through successive attacks, and ultra-powerful airstrikes, have to be crafted through mining and picking flowers across Dauntless's unique island environments. Each island is different. Some are snowy and mountainous winter environments, while others are hot and rocky deserts. Sometimes on hunts you will actually experience sandstorms and other weather phenomena that can decrease the visibility and increase the overall challenge of fighting behemoths. After each hunt, you'll always return to Ramsgate, which is the hub world in Dauntless. It's here where you'll craft every item and accept quests from different NPCs. Oh yeah, and thanks to community request, you can also pet dogs, yay! Given that I said this was a free-to-play game, you might be wondering, Adore, is this game pay to win though? I heard it was pay to win. Literally, I was picking out bananas at the supermarket, hoping to God none of them had a tarantula hiding in them, and this guy was like, you should pass on Dauntless, it's totes pay to win. Do people even talk like that? Worry not, friend, because for the most part, this game is not pay to win. It is, however, pay to look cool and shine bright like a diamond, or so I've heard. Whether it is unique armors and transmogs, hunt pass exclusive skins, flares, or emotes, paying real-world money is the only way to acquire many of these coveted items. However, if you do have any concerns on this front, you should really just look up the Shroud or Rezakiri gear, or even check out some of the exotics like Tragic Echo. Now tell me those are not the coolest armor pieces ever made. All of these and so much more can actually be obtained by just playing the game. Now, I'll discuss the Dauntless seasonal hunt passes. You might be wondering, what in the Maelstrom Storm is a hunt pass? Well, dear viewer, have you ever played a little game called Fortnite? It's kinda all the craze with the kids these days. Not my cup of tea, but basically Dauntless seasons work similarly, and honestly, it's pretty fair. With one caveat that I must mention, or you'll straight crucify me. Buying the Hunt Pass with Platinum gives you a whopping 50% increase to all mastery progression. That means paying means less of a grind, but ultimately, depending on what kind of a player you are, forgoing that might be a good thing. If you play Dauntless excessively, and let's be honest here, for us veteran monster hunters, that's pretty much a given, then you're gonna reach max everything really quickly, and then with nothing new to chase after, what's left for you to do? This game simply doesn't have the depth and variety yet to match a game like Monster Hunter, and so the smart system that they've implemented might ultimately be hindered by this Hunt Pass's progression boost. So, what makes the Hunt Pass fair then? It sounds pretty unfair. You liar! Now, is that language necessary? The reason it's fair is that there is a basic hunt pass that still offers you unique cosmetics and special items without paying anything, and since it's a level tiered progression system, you can actually buy in at any time. Say for instance that you thought you wouldn't be playing very much during the current season, but then actually find out that you've reached level 41 of 50. You now are pretty sure that you can finish out that level ladder, and buying in would give you all the rewards that you would have gotten up to level 41. If there's cosmetics that you really like, you might want to take advantage of that, and who doesn't love all the flares? With the Hunt Pass, you can get them all immediately, or even pay a bit more and progress to level 50 automatically. You progress this Hunt Pass through various daily and weekly challenges, so as long as you're actually playing Dauntless, you should be steadily progressing every season. Again, that's all optional, and the basic version of the Hunt Pass even awards some free platinum at certain tiers. Still, you might think that the system is unfair, but the current season is samurai and ninja themed, and with the hype surrounding Sekiro fresh in our hearts, it might be time to show off your inner chi. Remember, that's always optional, and even the basic stuff is still pretty great. If you're saying right now that that sounds pay to win, I mean, you straight up said it isn't only cosmetics, Adore, what do I really have to pay for? Then the answer is you honestly don't. Now, I recommend the dyes if you don't want to be seen as a commoner, but there's only one essential thing that absolutely costs money, but will be the first thing that any theory crafter picks up, and that is additional fuse slots at the middleman sell exchange. Now, you only get one slot, and so the others cost, I think it was about $15 total. That's if I remember correctly. Ultimately though, as an alpha founder who paid a lot of money to back the game and who feels that's totally worth it, I picked these up the first day I saw them. It's a no-brainer, as I know how deep I get into these types of games. Again, it's optional, but for certain players, essential. So we'll rate this pay-to-win-ish. Cells are pretty important and function quite similarly to decorations in Monster Hunter World or other games that let you slot your gems into your weapons and armor in order to have access to certain skills and abilities. These cells can actually give you direct defense to particular elements, like making you completely resistant to shock or fire status. Others actually speed up your ability to revive other slayers or have a % chance of reducing the damage that you take. In Dauntless, certain cells, like higher tiers of weighted strikes, can even help weapons that normally have minimal stagger capabilities, such as the chain blades, to effectively boop and interrupt behemoth attacks. Early in the development cycle of the game, booping behemoths to stagger them and maximize opportunities to break parts became ingrained in every competent slayer's mind. The concept of booping behemoths to open up additional damage phases is actually quite unique to Dauntless, and perhaps the true test of a slayer's skill in fighting these monstrous beasts. Sadly, in my opinion, not only are these attacks heavily telegraphed, they now display an orange indicator that I feel is both unnecessary and ultimately intrusive. The point of these types of games is learning boss patterns and openings organically. This has been eliminated completely, ensuring a more casual experience that I believe will hurt slayers in the long run. Dying over and over again, experimenting with new environments and monsters is exactly what trains you to be good at these types of games. Monsters should not have blatant tells like this. Now, maybe you feel differently about the feature, however, and you don't see it as a hindrance. Let's have a debate in the comments. Please link your playtime statistics for various similar games first, though. I'm of course being facetious, but I really don't know why anyone would defend such a thing. Besides the Hunt Pass, progression is gained through 2 other systems. General progression starts with a tutorial before sending you out to fight tougher monsters and build a new weapon and armor. It also takes you through earning your first lantern. Lantern items in Dauntless are crafted from certain behemoths, and they offer special additional abilities like an area effect attack that freezes the ground around you, or an explosive fireball when fully charged up. A few cell skills can actually speed up your lantern's etheric charge, but lanterns charge pretty quickly anyways. If not fully charged, you can also use just a bit of the aether to speed up your attacks for a short time. Quests will also introduce you to grenades, which you can craft and use during your hunts. There are several different grenade types, and you will unlock them all through normal quest progression, so no need to worry about that. The mastery system is the other way that you will progress in Dauntless. Each weapon class has its own challenges and goals that fill an XP bar and unlock various new special attacks, like a spin to win move for sword, or Thor's hammer Mjolnir, Flight of Ruin for the, axe? What? Slaying behemoths and completing challenges like defeating them solo or taking very little damage increases a behemoth section of the mastery system. Since normal quests are only going to get you to certain tiers of weapons and armor, you're always going to be at a disadvantage when fighting new behemoths. That's actually intentional, and it's to ensure that the game always remains challenging, because the highest levels of mastery for weapons are actually intended to allow you to craft endgame power. Thankfully, the mastery system in Dauntless allows you to feel like you're always making great progress no matter what you're doing, and it will always offer enough progression for slayers who reach endgame to still work towards some pretty challenging goals. Hold on, this just looks like another Monster Hunter clone. Amazingly, I hear this refrain all the time, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, you do hunt monsters, and yes, you craft armor and weapons from them, but excuse me, they're called behemoths in this game, and that's a huge difference. No, but seriously, apart from that, these games are not really that similar. Maybe a bit more with older Monster Hunter games, but Dauntless is nothing like Monster Hunter World. I'm now going to address both the misconception and the strong difference in difficulty. Baby's first Monster Hunter, this is not. While I would agree with anyone saying that Dauntless will likely improve overall skill in this genre, they really are totally different games in execution. Monster Hunter World was actually announced after Dauntless. It's just that Dauntless was on such low radar at the time that very few people even knew about it, whereas Monster Hunter is an established brand at this point. Dauntless is more Dark Souls than anything else. Behemoths are bosses with specific tells, and they do not at all behave like actual animals. They behave like bosses with scripted events, telegraphed moves, and specific attack patterns. And they don't deviate from this. To its detriment, Dauntless behemoths start to feel the same after you've hunted them several dozen times. Each fight will differ a little, but much in the same way that Dark Souls bosses do. When was the last time you encountered a Dark Souls boss that made sense in the world and behaved naturally? You haven't. Although that would make an amazing game. The closest to this might be the Great Wolf Sif in the original Dark Souls. But even Sif will always pick up his master's greatsword and start swinging around. He never attacks you with just his claws or behaves any different than the last 100 times that you died to him. Calamite always flies in and scorches the arena at the beginning of the fight. This is Dauntless in a nutshell. Nothing wrong with it, as it has clearly worked for the Soulsborne series. What it means, however, is that with very few exceptions, once you get down the bullet hell nightmare that is Rezakiri, you're likely never going to die to that behemoth ever again. Just like the bosses in Sekiro, you simply learn the patterns and every possible combination of move available to them, and then become a master of that boss. Same with Dauntless. Shroud will seem impossible to a new player, but veterans have pretty much got him down at this point. Anyone who is speaking objectively and has extensively played Monster Hunter World will attest to the fact that this is most assuredly not the case with Monster Hunter. Now, one exception does exist, and that has to do with monsters' habitat and their location on the map. With only slight variation, most monsters do stay relatively in the same place, but that's clearly a gameplay convention that was kept due to the missions where you have to kill very difficult monsters in very short time periods. Searching around the entire map just to find the monster would have wasted valuable time and overall been boring. Something that Dauntless actually has in spades, and that's not a good thing. Honestly, the trek of trying to find a behemoth while the timer ticks down has always been one of the most annoying things about the game, especially if you want to do quick speed runs. By contrast, monsters in Monster Hunter World feel very alive, and they act a lot less like bosses in arenas and much more like how you would expect an overgrown iguana to behave. I'll let you guess which monster I'm referencing. Every fight in Monster Hunter is thrilling in a unique way because the behavior of the creatures really is so lifelike. Yes, of course, they're still video game creations drawn up in someone's head, but they're the most real thing I've probably ever hunted, and that goes a long way to giving that game legs. There's a reason I have over 400 hours into Monster Hunter World on multiple platforms. Again though, let me reiterate, I'm not saying Dauntless is a bad game for this. I'm simply stating that in choosing whether or not to give Dauntless a try, look more towards Dark Souls and less towards Monster Hunter. While doing that, it's important to also look towards Destiny, as the highest tier behemoths have mechanics more in line with what you would expect from a raid boss in one of Bungie's critically acclaimed titles. This is the other place where Dauntless draws a clear distinction from Monster Hunter. With the exception of the newest Monster Hunter crossover event, which brought Final Fantasy's own big, bad behemoth, monster fights in that game do not feel like raid bosses. Dauntless behemoths do, with one in particular trapping you in radiant rainbow balls while pummeling you with deadly bullet hell mazes. Even after it leaves for you to chase it down, it can still pull you from anywhere on the map into a cage again, with no warning whatsoever. There is nothing in Monster Hunter like this, and for good reason, as it wouldn't really fit the tone of the lifelike monsters that Capcom has crafted. Other behemoths in Dauntless pull you into dark realms where visibility is all but gone and pools of darkness lurk in the shadows to hinder your movement and kill you slowly as you helplessly search for the behemoth responsible for your imminent demise. These are super interesting mechanics, and for the sake of the game, I'll refrain from spoiling any more of them. They require teamwork and intimate understanding of each behemoth, and as stated before, you will likely find them impossible during your first excursions into their domains. It is a testament to Dauntless that during these challenging hunts, my chat is routinely filled with shouts of, "He just one-shot me! How do I avoid the orbs? And what just happened?" I usually reply with tips while explaining that these are the Dauntless equivalent of raid tier events in other games, rather than incomprehensibly repeating to them the oft-explained "get good" mantra. Because I'm nice. So the question remains, just how difficult is this game, and how does it compare to Monster Hunter or even Dark Souls? The answer, as you may have expected, is kind of hard to quantify. Anyone with the time and energy can learn boss mechanics, but everyone always has that one boss or challenge that throws them for a loop, causing them to then browse the forums of other slayers who state unequivocally how easy they found that particular fight. Shroud is a pushover. Rezakiri just stands there, but for you, it might take 20 times to best them. If that sounds like too much of a headache, this game might not be for you. However, if you brave the islands, you will truly find the thrill of the hunt, and slayers of every background and skill level will be right there with you. They'll help you and guide you through every encounter, for it is the largely excellent community that makes this genre of games truly special. Now, if you want to maximize rare drops in Dauntless, it's best to slay behemoths solo by going on private hunts. Because of the behemoth's lower health and weaker attacks, this will be a far more efficient strategy than playing in a group. For the best chance when playing with others though, be sure to shout out, "Please go after limbs," or "Cut tail please," in chat. Chances are someone else in your squad is going after the same parts, and other slayers will probably be more than happy to help you out. I farm parts in private hunts just as I always have, and my advice for doing so involves learning weapon types like the axe and hammer that excel at this. I should note that with a few exceptions, most behemoth drops and materials in general are very easy to come by. In fact, most of the materials you need can be conveniently farmed by slaying any behemoth for which the elemental defense or attack of your armor and weapon coincide with. So you can basically fight any blaze behemoth you want if you're upgrading your blaze chain blades. However, exotic armor and weapons, the most coveted items in Dauntless, do require special materials gained from breaking weak parts in very short time frames. If you're having trouble breaking parts in only 2 minutes, my best advice is to find a competent slayer to help you two-man these challenges. The moment that you engage a behemoth is when the timer starts, so make sure that you have all your plans in order beforehand. Due to rare drop rates, crafting exotics can be a monumental task, but just remember, that's only the case with the highest tier items in the game. They are also well worth the grind, bringing unique special abilities and extra utility to your arsenal. One of them lets you become a shadow clone of sorts when you die for about 10 seconds and do massive damage. Hopefully at this point I have adequately addressed difficulty and the overall loot loop, so let's talk a bit about performance in Dauntless and what you can expect when booting up the game on different platforms. Sadly, in my experience on a base PS4 and Xbox One, the game ran quite abysmal, sending me seeking the comforts of the Epic Game Store on my desktop PC in order to launch the game. My PS4 experience with Dauntless routinely became a slideshow, with frame rates noticeably lower than 30, even in less demanding encounters. That's an unfortunate fact that I'm not going to shy away with. Just because the game is free to play doesn't mean optimization like this shouldn't have been fixed prior to launch. It's actually inexcusable in 2019 in my opinion, and given the many threads that I've read and the reviews that highlight this fact, it's not simply a case of me having older console hardware. On PC, things are a bit better, but for a game that resembles Fortnite, my relatively modest system with a very powerful CPU and a 1060 60GB overclocked graphics card should be able to max out everything at epic settings, which are the defaults chosen for my rig I might add, without any frame drops. Unfortunately, demanding behemoths routinely cause frame rate spikes that ruin an otherwise immersive hunt. Rezakiri's rainbow cages and screen clear flashes of whiteout are the worst culprits, and having never even attempted such encounters on consoles, I really fear how they play out there. As it currently stands, the game has poor optimization across the board, and I'm not sure what the timeline looks like for fixes to this. I am sure, however, that Phoenix Labs is hard to work on this as we speak. Regarding the roadmap surrounding Dauntless and future updates, the current roster is as follows: 4 lesser behemoths, mainly for training purposes, 3 non-elemental behemoths, 3 blaze element behemoths, 3 frost behemoths, 3 shock behemoths, 4 terra or earth element behemoths, 2 radiant or holy, and 2 umbral or darkness-based elemental behemoths. There are also 11 dire variants, as well as heroic versions of all of the behemoths. That rounds out to a nice even 20 unique behemoths. While that's modest by comparison to pretty much any Monster Hunter game in the series, it's a pretty good start for such a young but talented developer. I'm pretty satisfied, and given that Dauntless is a raging success right now, I expect that updates will be coming out much more frequently in the foreseeable future. I, for one, cannot wait for the next challenging creature to arrive in the Shattered Isles. Dauntless is a fun and impressive game with an excellent development team at the helm and a gorgeous art style. It is completely free to play, but currently runs quite poorly and may not have the lasting content at the moment that you would expect from a full-fledged Monster Hunter. Still, if you can wade through these problems, an enjoyable gem of a game exists here that will greatly improve as time goes on. Look for the next video in this series soon, where I'll take you on a trip back to where it all began and show you why the game that you log onto today is far superior, thanks in part to founders such as myself and a development team that listens closely to its community. Until then, like this video if you liked it. It really helps me out. Or dislike it instead. But you wouldn't want to do that and do bad things to me now, would you? Subscribe to this channel for more Dauntless goodness, and don't forget to ring the bell, because if you don't ring the bell, then you won't hear from me very often. Sad face. Share this video everywhere and comment your thoughts below. Love you all. See you in the Shattered Isles. Bye-bye.